everyone, and welcome to the channel Wisdom Circle. Yes, how's everyone doing today? It's Monday. I hope you guys are doing great. We are back in the game, okay? Hey, everyone. Hey, Lazarus and Felicia. How you guys doing? All right, so let's talk about things. So, first of all, today, as you guys know, first of all, I always forget to introduce myself. I'm Monica Bay, also known as the Divine Mother, and this is Mystic Temple, and we are all about bringing you the truth, okay? And also giving you messages that you can actually apply to your real life from the cosmic collective consciousness, which is a group of beings that come through me and speak through me. So, first of all, this morning, I pulled a card like I do not every single day, but I tend to pull a card a day and just kind of see from the Wordless Wisdom deck, by the way. So, there's a deck that I created. It's a digital deck called the Wordless Wisdom deck. Wordless Wisdom Oracle, actually, is the correct name, and it is available in the Mystic University app. It's for free. If you don't have the Mystic University app, even if you're not a member of Mystic University, you can still have the app and access the games. So it's in the game zone of the app. But anyway, it's called the Wordless Wisdom deck. It's a very powerful deck because I created it, but that's not the only reason why it's powerful. But it's a very powerful deck. And I pulled that card this morning and started getting messages. And then the Cosmic Collective Consciousness immediately starts like speaking to me, and they were like, "This is what you're going to talk about today." So today's topic was actually inspired by the card, which kind of triggered the Cosmic Collective Consciousness to begin to talk to me about several things today. So today we're going to talk about your inner divinity, but we've talked about inner divinity before, and I'm sure if you've been watching for a while, you know that you are divine. But there's a difference between knowing that you're divine and really knowing that you're divine. And when I say you're divine, that is the divinity within you. That means that you, at your core, outside of your human persona, outside of your ego that believes you are this individual person, outside of that mask, you are divine. And when you really understand that, when I say know it, but really know it, what I mean is we can know that on the surface, but to really understand it intrinsically from within changes everything. It changes our response to situations. And that's really what they want to talk about today is your response to situations and as you are going through life. Because we all know life is always going to life, as we say. There are always ups and downs in life. There are always peaks and valleys, and there are always things that happen that we didn't expect to happen, that we don't like happening, or great things that happen on the opposite of that. But when you really understand your divinity, your response to situations changes. Your nervous system response to things changes. So to understand your divinity is really to understand that you are all powerful, that everything that happens in your life is something that, first of all, most of that stuff doesn't actually matter when you really understand who you really are, when you really understand your divinity. And that's really what Mystic Temple is all about, is bringing you back that truth, the truth to your own divinity, not to someone else's divinity, but the truth to your divinity. And the fact that we are all divine. There is no person that is above another person on this planet or anywhere else. But there is no one who is above anyone else. We are all equally divine. And so when you really understand that and you're presented with a problem, your response to that problem tells you whether you really, really understand that. Do you respond in fear? Do you respond in angst? Do you respond in anger? Do you respond in immaturity? Do you respond in lashing back out? How do you respond to when presented challenges in your life? That in and of itself tells you intrinsically what you really truly believe about yourself. Because when you really understand that you are divine, there is nothing that can stop you. There is nothing that can hold you down. There is nothing that can actually break you. When you know that you are unbreakable and you are divine, what does that mean to be divine? It means that you are the essence of everything. Everything that ever was, I'm getting so many chills right now. Everything that ever was, ever is, and ever will be flows through you. You are divine. That's what that means. You are all. You are all powerful. You are everything. You are a piece of the vast ocean of existence. And you are also the ocean at the same time. So you are all of these things. And when you really understand that about yourself, then you can meet different situations with different energy. Like I said, your nervous system begins to respond differently. When you have a problem and you really understand that, you can look at the problem and be like, okay, what's the solution? What's the instead of reacting to a situation, you can respond to a situation. So whenever you have a problem that's going on in your life, ask yourself that question. What How would I respond to this situation if I truly understood my power? That's a great question to ask. I want you guys to write that down. How would I respond to this situation if I truly understood my power? Because if you truly understood your power, you would not respond to a situation in fear because you know there's nothing to be afraid of. What is there to be afraid of? This is all an illusion. What is there to be afraid of? All you have to do is say, okay, this is where I want to go. This is what I'm trying to do. Here's an obstacle. Boom, how do I get it out of my way? When you really understand that from a deeper level, on a subconscious level, on a spiritual level, then you begin to respond differently, and then you train your nervous system to respond differently, because the reality is our nervous systems are trained not just in this life, but in our cellular in our DNA is trained to respond to situations with fight or flight, because that's how we're wired, because that used to be a great way to survive in the wild. But the reality is, we're not in the wild anymore. We don't have lions, tigers, and bears chasing us anymore. So our nervous system is still responding to ancient times, and it isn't upgraded to this time. So when you are you have to, like I always say, healing and really self mastery, a lot of it is really going against human nature, because why do we get afraid? Why do we act in why do our nervous systems respond to everything so quickly? Is because we're wired that way. That is our nature. That is human nature. But we want to limit our suffering in this world. We have to kind of go against human nature, and that is self mastery. And that's why self mastery is not easy, because you're literally going against your nature. When people think of self mastery, they're just thinking of, like, okay, I need to learn how to control this. And you need to understand that you're going against your nature. If you understand that first, then you can move with more strategy. Then you can move within yourself with more fervor, because you can understand you are divine. What does that mean? You are divine in a meat suit right now. You are a divine being living a human experience. You are in this meat suit right now and in this fictional world right now. And does this world actually matter? It does, while because you're here, but at the same time it doesn't. So this is the paradox of reality. And a lot of people have a hard time sometimes understanding that, because it's like, okay, it matters, but it doesn't matter. So where do I go? It's not black and white. That's one of the first things you need to understand in order to fully understand this reality. Is it's not black and white. It's not one or the other. Everything is yin and yang. Everything is both at the same time. You are light and dark at the same time. The world is light and dark at the same time. Everything is, it means something and doesn't mean something at the same time. But you chose to incarnate into this life for a reason. You chose to incarnate into your path and into your life for a reason, to achieve something and to experience something. There's many layers to our life purpose. But when you move through life understanding your divinity, you limit suffering. Because at the end of the day, when we are presented with any kind of challenge, we have a choice. We have a choice how to respond. And that's something that the book of Rashida calls the light path or the dark path. The dark path meaning you choose to respond to that. You choose to respond to you choose to respond to a situation with your ego. You choose to respond to a situation with your trauma. You choose to respond to a situation with internalization, when nothing is really internal, nothing is really personal. So when you respond to those situations with your ego, with your trauma, with internalization, you're taking the dark path. Why are we calling that the dark path? Because that leads you into darkness. It leads you into depression. It leads you into anger. It leads you into negative energy. It leads you into a whirlwind of victimhood and all the other things. That is a dark path. The light path is moving into and responding to a situation with understanding, with power, with precision, with um, with care, and with compassion for yourself. Understanding, okay, I may feel a little something about this. I don't like it, but I know my power. And that's what standing in your God form is about. That's what standing in your divinity is about. Both synonymous. Because standing in your God form is standing in your divinity. That's why I call it a God form, because you are, when you stand in your God form, you're recognizing that you are a God, you are divine. Not, and again, that doesn't mean that you're above anyone else, because we're all equally divine. We're all equally gods, and we should all equally stand in our God form. And we're all on different paths, and we should stand in power and walk with power and run with power and fly with power down our path. But if you don't understand your divinity, if you don't understand the true essence of your nature, then it's very difficult to move through this life without a whole lot of suffering, because like I said in the beginning, life is always going to life. That's what happens. Life does have suffering in it. When I say you can limit your suffering, I'm no by any means I'm not saying you will have no suffering in your life at all, because we don't go through life without any suffering at all. But when I say you can limit your suffering, that means you could be all the way up here in your suffering, or you could be down here in your suffering and have a lot more fun. Okay. So obviously, we all want that, because who wants to suffer through life? Who wants to suffer through situations and things that happen? And so when things are happening in your life, you have to also understand that it's not happening to you. Everything, we tend to, and that's why I said the dark path, part of the dark path is internalization of everything. When something happens and gets in your way on your journey, or just something happens that you don't like or whatever, we internalize those things naturally. You're going to internalize that and say, well, what does this say about me? This person is doing this to me. Me, everything's me, 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 me. That's the ego. And when we do that, that's how we get traumatized. That's how we start to, and those things start to tap into previous trauma that you had. And when you start to practice, really truly practice divine responses, I'll just call it a divine response, meaning that you recognize your divinity, you recognize your power in everything that's happening in your life, and you can be detached to an extent. You're not supposed to be completely detached, okay? We are supposed to be experiencing the human experience. However, we don't have to internalize everything. And so when something happens, you can begin to detach and look at it from the outside and say, how would I respond to this if I truly knew my power? When you do that and you ask that question, your energy immediately shifts. If you really understand what I'm saying, your energy will immediately shift. And I've told some of my students and clients to do this before, and it works so, so well. And the cosmic collective consciousness is pushing that right now very strongly. It works so well because it puts you in check. It kind of checks you. You're like, oh, why am I responding this way? Why am I acting as if I'm not powerful? Why am I acting powerless in this moment? Why am I feeling powerless in this moment? Why is my nervous system reacting as though I have no power in this situation? Because in every single situation that you ever find yourself in, I guarantee you have power. You have lots of power. You have way more power than you even realize. And as soon as you stand in your God form, as soon as you stand in your divinity, that's when the solutions begin to appear. As soon as you actually start looking for the solutions. Because when you're too caught up in the problem, you're not looking for the solution. How many times have you known yourself in the past? I know you've seen it, where you're going through something, you're really in the thick of the problem, you're really in the thick of why did this just happen, blah blah blah. You have someone here giving you a solution. They're like, well, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? You can't even hear that solution because you're so focused on the problem. I know all of you have done that at least once before, or seen other people do it, where you're literally so caught up and like it's like brain fog and you can't even think straight because you're so caught up in the problem. Someone is literally here giving you the actual solution to the problem, but you can't hear that because you're too focused on the problem. I've seen it myself because I'm solution oriented. And, sometimes friends of mine have gotten annoyed with me because don't come to me with a problem and expect me not to help you find a solution, because I'm going to do that because I'm solution oriented and I understand that's the proper response. But Not to say that people's human responses are not proper, it's that it's not conducive. We'll just say that it's not conducive. So I'm not shaming anyone for reacting um, uh, uh, in a sad way or angry way or whatever initially in an emotional way. Like you're human, that's going to happen sometimes. But once you start to work on your self mastery, that'll happen less and less. And so when friends of mine come to me with a problem and then I'm giving them the solution, and then they keep focusing on the problem and they're not really they're hearing me, but they're not really hearing me. I just sit back and I just let them talk because that's really what they want to do right now. And then realize, okay, hopefully whatever I just said will eventually start to click and then they'll get on the solution. But this is something that, yes, yes, I'm glad you guys are resonating. Absolutely. This is something that happens a lot. And if you jolt yourself out of that moment by asking yourself that simple question, I'm going to say it again. How would I respond if I truly understood my power? If I knew I was divine? If I was standing in my God form? How would I respond to the situation instead of how I'm responding to it now? That'll make your shoulders go back. That'll make you sit up and you're like, wait a minute, let's do this. Let's solve this problem. And if I don't have the solution immediately, as soon as you start to think of the solution, as soon as you start to really seek the solution, it will find you. It'll find you through a person, it'll find you through an idea, it'll find you through your dreams. The solution will appear, and it will appear quickly as soon as you start looking for it. And this is why a lot of people stay in problems longer than they need to, because they're staying in the problem, not in the solution. So I'll just read a comment real quick. Alita said, I'm grateful we can listen to these replays for that reason, further integration. Yes, yes, absolutely. So when you think of any problem that you may be going through right now, or that you may go through in the future, or that you may have just had, how would you have responded differently if you knew you were divine? Just think of that right now. Whatever your last boulder that you had to cross was, whatever your last challenge that you had, think about how you responded or how you reacted versus how you could have responded if you had asked yourself this question first. And you'll see a difference. And maybe you're someone who has been on this path for a while, and you do respond, and you have started to have some self mastery, and maybe you're a student of mine, and we work on that all the time. So how would you, if you truly knew your God form, how would you have responded even slightly differently, or very differently? And that is how you need to start approaching your situations. Now, for me personally, I tell my story all the time. I probably tell you guys a little too much information about myself, but I used to respond. I used to react into situations very still. I've always been someone who stood in my power, but at the same time, not in my power really. So this is why I say you can understand your power without really understanding your power. I used to uh, oh, I've always been very strong. So I used to really always respond in strength, but also sometimes in immaturity, sometimes in anger, sometimes in uh, fully not understanding the true nature of everything, not understanding that that all the stuff that we pay attention to doesn't matter as much as we think. And I don't do that anymore. This is the very, very old version of me that I'm describing, but I don't do that anymore. And even the other day, something happened that I used to, maybe a long, long time ago, my nervous system would have responded to that. Even if my mind tried not to, my nervous system would have still responded. And it was just like no response at all. It was just like, okay, what are we gonna do? And so that is true self mastery. There is a journey to self mastery. Everything is not just one and done. Like, okay, now I've mastered myself and that's it. Self mastery is a continual journey, because guess what? You can master yourself today. You could have complete mastery today, but life is still going to life. And the further you go away from that mastery, as you start to go through life, if you don't continuously practice the self mastery, you will begin to fade away, and in terms the mastery will begin to fade away, and you begin to start to lose that mastery and find yourself reacting again. You're like, oh, so remember that self mastery is not something that is one and done. Life is a journey. spirituality is a journey. And self mastery is also a journey. And it's something that needs to be kept up. So I'm going to read a comment really quick. KL Conversation said, understanding why you respond has been a big game changer. Yes. Like knowing there's underlying issues, underlying issues is really the cause, not the surface level. Exactly, exactly. And your response is always underlying. Thank you for that. Your response is always underlying. There's always a reason why. And like I said, that's why I said responding with your traumas, because you may not realize you're responding with a trauma, but you are. And so that introspection is important. And that's why I'm always saying, know thyself, understand who you are, understand your divinity, but also understand your ego. And so a lot of people say ego death, and I'm not for ego death, I'm for ego control. The ego is supposed to be here or else it wouldn't be here. Okay. But the ego is the only way that we can fully immerse ourselves in this reality, in this fictional world. If without the ego, we would be doing nothing because we would realize that all of this stuff doesn't matter. We would never be having the human experience. So the ego is still important for the human experience, but it is not supposed to be running everything. And that's where we get into trouble. But the trauma that we experience affects everything in our lives, and it affects how we respond to situations, how we react, because those things push buttons. And I will just do a shout out to another episode that we did, of the channel Wisdom Circle. I think it was last month or the month before, where I talked about having no more buttons to push. So go back to that. Maybe Alita, if you can find that and put that up. But I don't remember what that was called. But I talked about how you have buttons to push, right? If you didn't have any buttons, some of those buttons are trauma. That's why healing is so important. If you heal, if you heal and remove the buttons, there's no more buttons to push. And then that's a continual effort as well, because new traumas are introduced all the time. Micro traumas, macro traumas. So you have to truly, in addition to um, in addition to understanding your God form, understanding yourself. And that's why I said understanding your ego, understanding what makes you tick, the things that drive you, the things that make you pull back, the things that offend you, the things that traumatize you, and begin to work on that inner work. And I have plenty of shamanic journeys right here on Mystic Temple. Whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're on Mystic Circle TV, go to mysticcircletv.com. And also it's on your TV on Roku TV and Fire TV and Samsung TVs. Okay, plug. So whether you're on Mystic Circle TV, whether you're on uh, I forgot where we are, all the places, the podcast. We have lots of shamanic journeys that I've done for you guys that are free, that you can take and listen to and really go on that journey. And a lot of those are, well, all of those are about self discovery and going deeper into yourself. So if you're not sure what your traumas are, you can find out. I've given you guys that. So go and check out those shamanic journeys and meditations. Every meditation I always do is always just uh, it's always an energy meditation. It's not just a relaxation. I never do those kind of meditations, although those are valuable as well. But I'm results oriented, so I just like to, if I'm going to be doing something, I want to, you know, get some type of, even though relaxation's a result too, but I want to get some type of like deep, let's uproot some things. That's just me. So that so all of my so all of my meditations are about like uprooting things and healing them, and showing you your own power with your energy system, because that's something that I'm very, very passionate about, is you guys really understanding your power and understanding your ability to move your own energy. You are your own healer. I'm not saying you don't need other people to help you heal and things like that. We are in this collective experience for a reason. And yes, sometimes you do need to go to a healer, because a healer, especially that is adept at what they do, can probably heal you better than you can heal yourself. And even if you are a healer, sometimes you need other people to heal you, because it's easier to heal other people than it is to heal yourself. And so, by the way, if anyone is looking for a healer, go to either monicabay.com or go to thewisdomnetwork.net. All right. So it's really important that you understand your healing. It's important that you understand your own journey and what that really means, as you're moving through life and how you are actually responding to situations in your life. And as you respond better and better, more wise, more divine, more godlike, as you respond to your situations like that, you will find that your life gets easier and easier because suffering is here. It's not in the situation. Just because you respond better doesn't mean that things are going to stop happening. Life is still going to life. But what matters is the effects on you, because everything, it doesn't matter what's happening in life. It's about how is it affecting me, and am I allowing it to cause suffering, or am I allowing it to be a lesson? Am I allowing it to be a challenge that I can then overcome and then see my own power? I want you guys to think about that. When you see a challenge, a lot of times we think of challenges as um, something super super negative. They're usually actually not. And again, things are just are. Things aren't negative or positive. They just are. That's the reality of energy. We're the ones in our human brains that color things black or white or negative or positive, things like that. It's all in our perception. But if something is happening in your life as a something that's in your way, okay, as a boundary or a challenge, if you see it as for what it is, it's a challenge or an opportunity, one or the other, and both are the same. The challenge is the opportunity, and the opportunity is the challenge. Okay. Hold on. Message. The challenge is the opportunity, and the opportunity is the challenge. So when you look at life this way, you start to really see the blessings and the abundance that is everywhere. It is literally everywhere. You are so abundant. Your life is so abundant. You have so many wonderful things coming your way, even when they're packaged in something negative, put in air quotes. Even when you package that, you can see the beauty in that if you understand it, if you're willing to see it. Because every time I have a challenge, I immediately, partially because I'm very kind of, uh, uh, I don't know, just like I said, I always respond in power. So I'm like, oh, this is in my way. Oh no, you're not. I'm very kind of, I guess, competitive, if you would say, with energy. I'm competitive with my own life. So if something happens, it is a challenge. I'm like, okay, I don't like this. I wish the challenge wasn't there. We all want an easier life. However, if that challenge is there, I'm going to meet that challenge with power and precision, and I'm going to beat it. And when I beat it, I'm going to be reminded once again of my own divinity, of once again of my own power. So I also want you to think of times where you met challenges that you didn't think you were going to be able to get over. I want you to think about that. Any challenges that you really didn't think you were going to get over in your life. They could have been a long time ago, could have been recent. You may have had many, many of those things. You probably did. If you're over 30, you definitely had many of those things where in the moment you thought it was the end of the world. In the moment you thought, how the heck am I ever going to get over this? But you did. That shows you your power. You met that challenge and you got over it. No matter how you did it, even if you didn't fully meet it with power, but you still met it and you still got through it because at the end of the day, you didn't have a choice. And when you don't have a choice, that's when your power shows up. And that's the point a lot of times of the challenge and the lesson, because part of this human experience is to, part of the point of this human experience has many points, but part of the point of the human experience is to show yourself and to remember who you really are, to become lucid in the dream. So if you just simply pay attention to the cycles of your life, pay attention to the challenges that you've met and overcome in your life, then you'll understand your power. And that can bring you closer to your divinity. That can bring you closer to your happiness and bring you closer to your God form. Okay, I'm going to just read a couple messages. I see that some people are chatting here. Hold on. Okay. I'll say so. KL Conversation said, I recognize that each challenge has made me realize a part of my life and I need to heal, or something I need to let go of. Yes, that too. It's there to give you something. That's the blessing. That is the blessing. If it's a challenge, and you think, oh no, this is horrible, why is this here, and you focus on the challenge, sometimes you miss the point. Sometimes you miss that opportunity. That's why I said the challenge is the opportunity, and the opportunity is the challenge. Yes. And Alita says you are in control. Gems dropped. Okay, good. Yes. So I will leave you guys with this. I'm going to remind you one more time the question. Anytime you are in a challenging situation, anytime that you feel that you can't, especially when you say the word I can't, please don't ever say that. But you're human, so you will at times. Okay, I'll give you that. But never say I can't. That is always a lie. 100% of the time, it is always a lie. There is nothing that you can't do. It's about whether you want to, whether you want to go through the effort and the challenges that it's going to take to do it, whether there's enough time in your lifetime to accomplish that or whatever. But can you? Absolutely. Everything is yes, you can. So when you start to say, when you start to have challenges, and thinking that you can't do something, thinking that that this is the end, now something is happening and now there's no way we can get out of that. Ask yourself that question. Stop for a moment. Step back outside of yourself and look back at yourself and say, how would I respond, not react? How would I respond to this situation differently if I truly understood my divinity? If I truly understood my power, or if I truly understood my God form, whichever one of those works for you. Ask yourself that question in every challenging situation, and you will find that you begin to train yourself to respond differently. And you will also find that your periods of suffering are less and less and less. That your amount of times that you're in a period of suffering will become less and less and less. And that your life begins to mirror your desires. Your life will begin to mirror what it is that you foresee, what you see in yourself, because our perception of ourself echoes outward. So it's really important that you understand that about life. Okay, so we are the protagonists in this illusionary reality. Yes, and we get to choose how to co-create our story through how we respond to the plot. Exactly. Great, Lazarus. Great point. Stand in your God form to author your most powerful story. That's what's been my journey. Yes, absolutely, Lazarus. And that has been your journey. And that's, some people would say, oh, that's um uh not the most fun journey, right? To but it is because you get to understand your power and you get to stand in your God form. And some people have um have serious challenges. Some people have small challenges. Everyone has serious challenges at some point in their life. And as you move through those things, you start to realize your God form again if you're looking at it through this lens. So I will end with that. And just remember your power, stand in your God form. Never, ever, ever believe that you can't. Never, ever believe that anything can defeat you, because that just doesn't exist, only in your mind. All right, everyone, that's all I have to say for today. And I will end in the divine language by saying what essentially means peace be unto you, Zora Kunti, and I'll see you next time. Wait for the song.